particularly with the kind of ho-hum, literally traffic vehicles like CVT crossovers, etc., soft roaders as I often call them, including of course this month, and we'll talk about that in a second. It's very rare for me to be able to actually say that I genuinely liked an update or many of the things therein. For the update here as a whole, I'm not going to say that 1.63 is going to make you want to jump back into playing GT if you've been away for months, or I wouldn't even necessarily say it's worth reinstalling if you're already bored of the game. It's not that kind of earth-shattering change with multiple circuits and events and all that kind of stuff. It just isn't. What it is, however, is definitely better than the past few months in terms of the overall quality of the vehicles and how good they actually feel. In terms of career mode events, there's a few new ones sprinkled in. I actually do quite like the new scapes. Some of them are quite Fallout-esque. Aside from that, there's surprisingly little else to do. They have interestingly made some changes to the Corvette, in particular the racing version with its hybrid boost. I haven't had the chance to really dive into that yet, so I would be very curious to know for those who have. I'd be really keen to see down below, do you think it's better now? And has it made a significant difference to the car? And apparently the point level is very different on the car now as well, which is never a bad thing. Now, as far as breaking down this particular first thoughts and impressions review, an overarching review if you will, I'm going to talk about the car which I think is the standout first, and then work my way back through them as I get less and less impressed. And of course, if you're new to the channel, tomorrow I will be talking about all of the new motor swaps. There are some very cool ones in there, certainly some vehicles which you wouldn't expect. This time around though, as you saw from the thumbnail and the title, Hyundai runs away with the win. The other cars are interesting to good, sometimes insultingly bad, not in terms of the car itself, but in terms of what it represents yet again, and we'll get to that in a second. But first of all, this one, simply put, it might well be my favourite front-wheel drive car in the game, at least in standard form. And part of the reason why I love it so much is because the Elantra N is a superb representation of something which I have been saying for literally years. That is that Gran Turismo and any racing game is such a massive marketing tool in terms of potential because it makes people, especially in our formative years, want to own certain vehicles, and for some of us, probably more than a few JDM heads I would imagine when it comes to Gran Turismo growing up, it makes you buy certain vehicles and love them and want them and strive to own them. For me, I've said it before, Test Drive Unlimited 2 is why I bought the Touareg. Midnight Club is why I bought the Escalade. My Evo 7 or the Daihatsu Rally, they were directly because of Gran Turismo. The list goes on. So these games do have marketing power. The problem is many of these are, as I've coined the term recently, anti-marketing. They make cars which you might be interested in, but because of how they're implemented in the game, you never would be because they're so bad. This is everything those cars aren't. It's everything they wish they were. It's fun. It's got really cool visual upgrades. The wide body is very cool on the Hyundai. You can kind of turn it into the, TCR version, the racing version. And even with no tuning, no upgrades, no modification whatsoever, such as the version that I'm driving here in the video, it is already an absolute pleasure to work with. In fact, if you didn't tell someone that it was front-wheel drive, I honestly think you would probably assume it was four-wheel drive. It really does feel that good. No understeer compared to what you'd expect for sure. And for a car with up around 270 horses, it's basically a Korean Evo at that point, but it's front-wheel drive and still feels fantastic for it. It is an absolute pleasure, and it's only 36 grand. This is what we should have more of in Gran Turismo. Unexpected picks, but which give you exactly what you would want from a car in terms of the standard experience, the modified experience, the potential to use it in career mode or online. It's a 500-point car as standard, and it's definitely one of the standouts of this year. We'll get more into the details in its own review though, so for now let's go to my number 2. And this one is probably more shocking. Certainly if you haven't driven them yet. If you have driven them, you'd probably understand why it's my number 2, partially because of how shocking it is. The Vision GT, the Opel Corsa GSE, is a legitimately super fun car to drive. If you hate electric cars, well, probably it's not going to win you over because you just don't like them anyway in principle, but I tell you what, if you're a Gran Turismo 2 fan and you have any kind of fond memories of the Tigra ice race car, or perhaps the Calibra or the Astra, I think you're really going to like this because it may well be electric, but it feels like it captures a lot of the spirit of those iconic four-wheel drive racing Opels and Vauxhalls from the series, as well as touching on what I said just now regarding the Elantra and the marketing of games. Well, this ain't going to make me buy a Corsa, but I tell you what, it's a great Vision GT, and it's definitely one of the absolute best, certainly one of the best we've had in a long time, and to the point where if you're not a fan of them, I think you will legitimately enjoy driving the car. The boost system is kind of pointless, it doesn't make a huge difference and it takes ages to recharge. The active aero is very fun, surprisingly for an electric car in Gran Turismo that doesn't usually know know how to utilize stuff like that, not only is it not stuck into a stupid class, but somehow they managed to implement it in a way where it doesn't have chronic understeer all the time, or as soon as you accelerate become a front-wheel drive car that wants to go straight into the barrier, like some of them do. So it's actually usable, it's actually fun. Of course, being a VGT, it's still going to be limited in some senses, but yeah, as far as these cars go, it might be one of the ones to keep your eye on if you fancy trying a good one. In third place, we're putting the car which I would have probably expected to be higher, at least number 2, probably number 1. Certainly more of a meme car, definitely an icon. Of course, the Land Cruiser, the FJ40. This car has all of the kind of visual modifications which you would assume from something that is essentially the rival of the Willys Jeep, at least within the game. You can add the oil can on the back, you can change whether you want the bonnet clips there or not, all the kind of usual stuff. You can change up the grille a little bit, and you can motor swap it. Again, we'll talk about that tomorrow, but it's a hell of a motor swap, again, much like the Jeep. The reason why it's not higher on the list is because it doesn't necessarily have like a wow factor that the other two do have. It's more of like a funny kind of way. It's a charming car. Of course, it's in the legendary dealership. Thankfully, it's not very expensive. It's 44 grand. It's got 128 horses, and it's actually heavier than you might think. It looks like quite a small, tinny little car, but it weighs over 1,600 kilos, which is a bit unfortunate, but of course you can drop that anyway, and we will probably dive more into the tuning side of things in its own review. I've put it at number 3 because that's exactly where it should be. Number 3 is middle of the pack. It's exactly what you'd expect a little old off-roader to be. It's charming, it's fun, it's funny. It could be quick, but be careful how much power you put into it, because much like the Jeep, it'll probably get a bit stupid, certainly for its point level. Number 4 is another shocker. Much like the Vision GT, it's not the car which you're going to think. Number 4 is the soft roader, the Toyota RAV4, which of course means you know what number 5 is going to be, and you better believe I'm going to be talking about that in a second and in its own video. But for now, this one is, I guess, unsurprisingly, given Toyota and their love for both Porsche and Toyota, which is very obvious, especially in the past couple of games, this is genuinely way better than most of the other soft roaders, not least of which because you can change stuff on it. You can actually modify the car. Who knew that that could make such a difference to how enjoyable a car is to use? Almost as if the other one before this, the Mazda, had the exact same thing going for it. This one, of course, with that CVT transmission, it seems to bode very badly for how horrific the car would be, but it's kind of represented as sort of a 10-speed version of a CVT, and more importantly, you can put a race box in it. So you can actually make it drive more like a normal car, and you can modify it. You can give it significantly more power with turbos and stuff. You can kind of wide body it. It's not a crazy difference. Again, it's not going to rock your world. It's definitely not going to melt your face, but it's better than it easily could have been, which is an extremely low bar, but to me, this is more of an acceptable category of traffic vehicle. I would never be clamoring for it. I certainly wouldn't recommend adding more like it, but if you're going to force them upon us, which Kaz certainly seems intent to do, then this one is at the very least more useful than the other ones. That brings us to the vehicle which you would never expect to be in last place, and I'm sure there are plenty who disagree because they just like the car, they have an existing brand loyalty or car loyalty, whatever the case may be, but I'm just looking at this from just the on-paper stats perspective. It's of course the Spirit Racing 12R version of the Mazda Roadster. Now this car is ridiculous for a number of reasons. They give us the excuse that you cannot modify it, as you'll see here in the video. You can just change the tyres, which apparently they're going to be changing down the line, which is very odd. You're also not even told most of what the specs are. If, though, you use your noggin, you can jump back into your garage and just filter by weight and filter by power and see where the car falls, and then you'll know what the weight and power are, so you can kind of still work out what it is, much like with the Afeela. The issue with the car is that not only can you not really do anything with it that a normal Mazda can't do, in fact, quite the opposite, you can do less with this car because you can't modify it, but it's 120 grand. Which is ridiculous for this car, and the justification that they give to it is because this is essentially a test mule. This is supposed to be the prototype version, not the customer prepared version. So you don't get told the specs, kind of concept car style. That's just all BS. It's just marketing speak. It's just an MX-5 that's too expensive that you can't tune. It doesn't have the charm of a concept car. Gone are the days of the Honda Dual Note, the Mazda RX-8 concept, the Mazda Kasabi or whatever it's called, that little silver thing. Those were actually charming concept cars. They were interesting, they were different, there were so many of them. Don't have that with this car. It just feels like an MX-5 with some stripes, but that's what makes it more insulting. It's a car which is perfectly pleasant to drive and yet still completely pointless, because at least if it was bad you could just say, well, it's garbage, but it's not. It's a car that does have potential and is kind of charming and does look good, but all of those things you can say about the normal version of the MX-5, which you don't have to pay six-figure money for. And even though the price is nowhere near as egregious, this definitely gives me vibes of the Chrome line cars in Gran Gran Turismo 6, and any of you who have been around on the channel since the potato cam days, or even later in many cases, you know exactly how I feel about stuff like the chrome line cars. The only thing which saves it is that it's not quite as stupid as those cars on price. I'll get more into my thoughts on that one though in its own review. Aside from that though, there's not too much else to talk about. Of course, if there are additional things which you've noticed, maybe bugs, glitches, that doesn't seem to happen quite as often as it used to, which is of course a good sign. What are your overall feelings on the update? Are you happy with it? Perhaps like me, you were pleasantly surprised. Which was your standout vehicle? And of course, as I said, stick around from tomorrow onward for motor swaps and car reviews. But for now, I'll see you then, and thanks for watching.